Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us today for our webinar on fall protection as part of NAOSH Week. That's North American Occupational Safety and Health Week, sorry. I'm Amanda Siliker, the Communications and Engagement Manager here at Construction Safety Nova Scotia. In case you don't know about us, we're a nonprofit association that is funded by the construction industry, and we're dedicated across the province. Any employer in the construction sector with a WCB account is automatically a member of our association. And there's lots of benefits to being a member, such as discounted training, consulting services from our highly skilled OHS advisors, first year of core certificate of recognition, evaluation, and training for free, and downloadable and customizable safety templates on our website, and much more. There's also many different ways that you can reach us. You're tuning in today on a social media platform. So we're there, and then we're on all of the other ones too: LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can email us, you can call us, you can pop into our office. We're here to help you, so we can be reached in many different ways. And of course, I have to do a shameless plug for our app. You can download our Guide to OHS Legislation app. It has all the different topics that you might need in very easily searchable way with requirements that are explained in clear language. There's also links to useful resources in there like safe work procedures. And if you're a worker, it also outlines your rights and responsibilities under the OHS Act. So definitely take a look and download that when you have a minute. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Ryan Quinn. He is an NCSO, CRSP, and an OHS advisor team lead here at Construction Safety Nova Scotia. And he's going to take us through the fall protection webinar today. Over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Amanda. So yes, like Amanda said, I'm Ryan Quinn. I've been with Construction Safety Nova Scotia for over 9 years. In those 9 years, I have taught hundreds of fall protection courses, developed the curriculum, and been fortunate enough to advise companies and fellow safety professionals on fall protection best practices. So it's a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So we'll dive right in. So just to get started, we're not going to just simply be reviewing the regulations or the standard material that you'd see in a fall protection course today. We'll talk a little bit about what employers can do, employees can do, and Construction Safety Nova Scotia can do to reduce injuries and fatalities related to falls. But again, to get us all started, we will start with the basics of when is fall protection required in Nova Scotia. So in the workplace health and safety regulations, you'll find these requirements. We require a form of fall protection when we're working at a height of 3 meters, 10 feet or more, or at any height less than 3 meters if the work area is above a more hazardous surface than a flat, safe surface. So working above rebar, for example, or some rocks, anything that can cause greater injury, or if you are working above an exposed hazardous material contained in a pit, vat, or tank. Fall protection would be required in those situations. Companies may supersede this and set that requirement for fall protection at a lower height. So always be aware of that when working on different sites as well. And federally regulated sites, you're going to be looking at an 8-foot rule there. So keep that in mind. Next slide, please. So in Nova Scotia, there are 5 main forms of fall protection that we can use depending on the environment, the situation, the work to be done. Some forms may be better than the other, but it is situation specific and needs to be assessed very carefully when determining your fall protection solution. So we can have guardrails, as you see in your image there. You can have temporary flooring covering any holes anywhere someone could potentially fall through. You have personnel safety nets. travel restraint systems, using a harness, travel restraint lanyard, anchor points, preventing the worker from reaching that fall hazard itself. And what most people are familiar with, fall arrest systems there, which are designed to arrest or stop a fall once the fall has occurred, and if designed properly, used properly, should prevent that worker from hitting the next lower obstruction or the ground. So you can find more information in the Workplace Health and Safety Regulations on the CSNS Guide to OHS Legislation app and in CSA standards on some of these topics. Next slide, please. So some injury statistics in Nova Scotia related to falls. And I will note also that falls are consistently in the top 3 injury or accident types causing fatalities and serious injuries in Nova Scotia. So it's still an issue out there. And again, hopefully today we provide you some more information on how to prevent falls from happening in your workplace. So in 2021, in the construction industry, 457 time loss claims. 100 of those claims involved falls, so approximately 22% of those claims. Now that may be falls at the same level, a slip, trip, and fall, or fall to a lower level. Typically, you'd see the slips and trips at the same level be about 60%. 40% of those falls would be fall to a lower level. And fractures and dislocations were the main injury type in 2021, sprains and contusions, or sprains and strains, next contusions, bruising, and then you have your concussions and other types of brain injuries there, and punctures, lacerations, and so on. A shocking number there is the over 15,000 days of work lost for those workers who were injured as a result of a fall. Now we'll take a look at the 2022 statistics. So we'll see here the numbers are moving in the direction we don't want to see, which is increasing. Shockingly, a 49% increase in falls in 2022 from 2021. So about 26% of claims involve a fall. In nature of the injury, sprains and strains, switch places with fractures and dislocations here, but still very similar to injuries in 2021. And days lost, over 15,000 days lost. And that number could still increase because people off on their claim from these falls in 2022 may still be off work. So that number may increase, will likely increase. Next slide, please. So why are falls still happening in the construction industry? We have training, we have equipment, we know what we need to be doing to prevent falls. But again, the falls are still increasing. So we need to take a deeper dive into the causes behind these falls. So poor lighting, slippery walking surfaces, poor housekeeping practices. If you can't see where you're walking, obviously you can fall. And some good housekeeping practices can prevent those slippery surfaces, those trip hazards. Missing guardrails is another big issue, whether it's on a scaffold and on the leading edge of a high-rise build, on a balcony on a new building where the permanent guardrail hasn't been installed. Using equipment like ladders or scaffolds that are in poor condition. So this equipment should be inspected before each use. It needs to be inspected before each use. And ladders need to be inspected at least annually by a competent person. But we should never be climbing up on any equipment that has not been inspected, not been assembled by a competent person. Next slide, please. Missing or misusing fall protection equipment. So this can simply be you're working at those heights where there is a fall hazard and fall protection is required, and a fall arrest system is not in place. A travel restraint system is not in place. Guardrails aren't there. Temporary flooring is not there. Not using equipment properly. Or it could be, you're wearing a harness, but are you tying off the entire time you're working? Are you exposing yourself to that risk by not using the equipment properly? Have you inspected the equipment before you use it? Do you understand your fall clearance calculations? So if you do fall, is there potential to hit the ground because there's enough lifeline, stretch in your harness, deployed energy absorber? So we need to know our equipment very well, know the limitations of it, know the appropriate applications for that equipment. Failing to understand or follow job procedures. So maybe we don't understand a safe work practice or safe job procedure, and we continue working anyway without seeking further guidance there, or simply neglecting to follow procedures when we know the content of the procedure, know how to do it, but skip it for whatever reason. Neglecting worker and supervisor training. So of course, anyone working at heights requires fall protection training. Anybody planning or supervising the work at heights and work that requires fall protection needs to be trained as well. That supervisor, that owner that may never climb to those heights anymore, they still require fall protection training. And supervisor level training is also a great option for those people to understand their roles, their responsibilities, their duties when it comes to working at heights and fall protection. And then we see a big one, which can cause all kinds of injuries, is taking shortcuts while we're rushing to meet those deadlines. So again, work needs to be planned carefully, perform it at the pace that's required to do so safely, and don't take those risks just to try to meet a deadline. Next slide, please. So something most people are familiar with, the hierarchy of controls there. So we have a fall hazard. How are we going to address that? This hierarchy here has categories, which at the top are the most desirable, most effective, and then as you work your way down, less effective, but still valuable there. And it's often a combination of these categories that we would put in place to mitigate the risk of a fall. So elimination, can we remove the fall hazard altogether? Can we lower a piece of equipment down to ground level, work on it there, instead of having to access it from a lift or scaffold or ladder? Substitution, is there a safer piece of equipment to use? Can we use a self-retracting lifeline versus a energy absorbing lanyard? So with an SRL, a self-retracting lifeline, that will limit free fall distance, should create less force, less energy going to the body, less chance of hitting those lower obstructions. Could we use a mobile elevated work platform versus a scaffold in a situation? You have your engineering controls, engineered anchor points, guardrails, temporary flooring. So can we engineer out that fall hazard? You have your administrative controls, training, inspections of the workplace, inspections of your equipment, policies, practices, and procedures. So that guidance on how to perform the work safely. And then, of course, we have our PPE, which is our last line of defense. So when these higher order categories don't provide all that protection and there's always some residual risk left, we have our PPE, so a fall arrest system. using personal protective equipment, a travel restraint system, using personal protective equipment. And again, the best solution is typically a combination of these categories. The more risk, the more controls that need to be put in place. So employers, what can you do to help reduce that risk of a fall and keep your workplace safe? So an ongoing demonstration of commitment to health and safety, making health and safety at the forefront of how you do your work, how you conduct business, keeping it an active conversation, taking concerns seriously, leading by example. Employers need to know the legislation, the OHS Act, regulations that relate to working at height, so the workplace health and safety regulations, codes of practice, CSA standards. We should, as employers, be well versed in all of those, know, want, apply, and apply this legislation, regulations, and codes to our job planning. So ensuring that safety is built into the job planning. We don't bid, show up to a job, and then figure out what we're going to do for a fall protection solution. That should be incorporated into that planning, the costs accounted for, and then how we're going to deploy these fall protection solutions. Proper supervision is key. Supervisors can really influence the safety culture of a company, and the employees are looking to them for their guidance there. So supervisors should be providing coaching, ongoing training, enforcing rules and regulations where required, making sure everybody is working safely and listening to those concerns from workers and addressing those concerns. And employers, again, develop appropriate policies, practices, and procedures. Consult with your workers, consult with subject matter experts. Make sure those policies work for your business and, again, are compliant with the regulations. Next slide, please. Providing training is fundamental. So we would have our compliance training. Fall protection training is valid for 3 years from the date that it is completed. You can come to an organization like Construction Safety Nova Scotia and take a course in fall protection and receive that information and skills in the basics there. But then you also need your ongoing on-the-job training. So this is where employers are training the employees on the exact fall arrest equipment you have, on the procedures to install guardrails. If you have a new piece of equipment, make sure all workers are adequately trained in that equipment on both how to use it, maintain it, inspect it before they go and use it in the workplace. So toolbox talks, brief training seminars. Maybe you take a day to train everybody on new practices and policies. But it is vital that employers are ensuring that their employees are trained in the equipment that is provided to them. That takes us to the next thing, proper equipment for the environment and task. Consult with suppliers. They have reps that can help you determine appropriate equipment for the type of work that you do. Keep those lines of communication open. Be receptive to concerns from workers or opportunities for improvement. Be open, honest, transparent in those communications, and the good old continuous improvement of plan, do, check, act. Plan your workout. How do you think, what's the best solution to get that work done? Perform the work. Evaluate, how did that go? How did this project go? Can we do things better the next time? So in the act part, how did this, how are we going to use that feedback from the last project? How can we improve how we do work at heights and keep the cycle going and just keep improving your practices? Next slide, please. So for the employees, engage in and value the training. You're in training not just to receive a card, and it's not something you just do every 3 years. It's for your safety. It's for the safety of your coworkers. Allows you to perform your job more efficiently. But the main thing is it lets you perform your job safely so that you can go home at the end of the day. So value that training. Learn and follow those policies, practices, and procedures at your company. No one is expected of you. Know the best practices to perform work safely. And use that proper equipment for the environment and task. Your employer is providing you with the gear. Make sure you know how to use it. Take care of it. And actively participating in OHS activities. Can you be involved in a workplace inspection? Are you actively participating in the hazard assessment process? Providing your feedback on what you think is the best solution. Pointing out possible deficiencies in a plan. You can potentially, volunteer to do a toolbox talk. Just be active. Make sure your voice is heard. And value that your participation is not only your right, but creates a safer workplace for yourself and your peers. Next slide, please. So encourage safe behaviors from coworkers. Leading by example is always great. Do the right thing always. Don't take shortcuts. Always practice those safe behaviors. For example, you're always going to put your harness on and tie off when fall arrest is the solution. You're always going to make sure guardrails are installed correctly before work proceeds. We can also report on safe conditions and acts. So you've identified a hazard. There's an uncovered opening that someone could fall into. Can you fix that yourself? Or do you need to report that to your foreman and then follow up and make sure that it's been fixed? You see a coworker doing something unsafe. Take the time to mention that to them. Show them a safer way to do it. Practicing situational awareness. So where are you? What's going on around you? And making sure you're always keeping an eye on that. In construction, things are constantly changing. That's the nature of construction. Though you have to be actively aware that a new hazard can present itself at any moment. So always take that time to look around, reassess, and make sure that it's still safe for you to be working. And always show up fit for duty. So that doesn't just mean what traditionally is thought of as, you show up for work sober, of course, and stay that way throughout the day. But do you have any issues at home? Are there financial concerns? Is there anything that's going to distract you from the task at hand? And hopefully you work for a company where you can take those concerns to your boss and maybe have some different work that day that is less hazardous. Maybe you have to just use a sick day that day because you know that you are not fit for duty for whatever reason it is. Next slide, please. So what can be done from Construction Safety Nova Scotia? So my colleague Amanda, her team, and 14 other stakeholders have partnered up to develop this campaign here, Tie Off Nova Scotia. So you'll see billboards, you'll see ads, you'll hear ads. Hopefully everybody is exposed to this campaign in some way or another, and make this something that's more prominent in your workplace. Use this to encourage those safe behaviors when working at heights. So whether it's tie off for your family, tie off so you can go play hockey after work. We all want to come home safe. We don't want to be injured. We certainly don't want to lose our life on the job. So remember why we're working and why we're working safely, and really drive that message home consistently. Don't let people forget why we are doing these things. And it is so we can go home at the end of the day. Next slide, please. Additionally, with Construction Safety Nova Scotia, we have training courses. So your Fall Protection 1, the basic, so your regulatory compliance course, the minimum required to work in situations requiring fall protection, supervise, plan that work. The next level up is a course designed for supervisors. They're so going more in depth into the topics covered in basics and really looking at how those supervisors can influence safe behaviors in the workplace, ensure that hazard assessments are done to the highest level of quality possible, plans and procedures, that equipment is proper for the job, how to do great toolbox talks. It's a great course for any supervisor who has employees working at heights. And then we have our scaffolding practical, teaches you the theory and the practice of safely erecting, inspecting, dismantling, using, and frame scaffolding. So that's a fun one there. We get to talk about scaffolding theory for a bit, and then we get to go hands-on and build scaffolding at our facility in Burnside. You can find more information there on our website, constructionsafetyns.ca. Additionally, you can call Construction Safety Nova Scotia, send us an email anytime. 8 to 4:30 are hours of operation. There are lots of advisors that have years, decades of experience with fall protection that are happy to help you address any problems that you may have, or with fall protection solutions, provide some guidance, some advice on best practices, or point you in the direction of someone that may be able to help you find the appropriate fall protection solution for your workplace. So I could talk about fall protection all day, which we do in our fall protection courses, but I'll limit it to, the half hour today where it is people's lunch break. I do really appreciate everyone attending. I hope everyone can take something away from this. And the main thing is just keep this as an active conversation. Always be looking out for better ways to do things, making sure workers are working safely and that the company is committed to safe work at heights and using proper fall protection. With that, I'll turn it over to any questions that we may have had.
So none have popped in yet, but I'll just remind everybody that whatever social platform you're watching this on, you can just go into the chat, the comments section, write in any questions you have, and we will see them all here on the back end of this platform. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that, just in case anyone has any questions for Ryan. And I will remind you all that as part of the fall protection campaign, we do have a website completely dedicated to fall protection. So that's tioffns.ca. And it's organized by employer or worker. So when you get to the site, you can click which one pertains to you. And then you'll see all the legislation. You'll see lots of different resources from us, from CCOHS. We have CSA links to CSA standards. So a lot of great resources on there, stats, just some good information to have. So make sure you check that out. It's also linked on our own website, constructionsafetyns.ca. And as Ryan mentioned, you can see the course calendar there if you want to sign up that way, or just give us a shout and we'll be able to let you know when our fall protection courses are running. And the July to December calendar should be coming soon, hopefully by the end of May. So stay tuned for that. If you don't see anything on the calendar right now that works for you, then something in the second half of the year might. And if you need us to come to you, that is something that we also do. We're also able to send instructors to your location if you have a small group that needs to be trained. So definitely reach out to us for that. All right, Ryan, I don't see any questions popping up here. I think you did such a good job. Everyone is now a fall protection, expert. So
Right on. Thank you, Amanda. And yeah, if anything comes to mind, of course, just give us a call or send us an email and we'll do our best to answer that question for you.
excellent. Thanks everybody for attending, and have a great and safe day.
Thanks, everyone.